I don't really have any slides. I generally like to tell stories when I present. So one of the things that when I talk about social engineering, first of all, listening to Dwight there, he actually brought up a lot of things that are related to social engineering. Chris Hagnegi actually, in his book about social engineering, he writes about becoming part of a tribe, and the idea that we evolved prejudice, the concept of prejudgment of people based on the idea of what they, whether or not they look like us, sound like us, dress like us, speak like us, whatever, right? And so the idea that, those were people that were safe for us because they were likely to be part of our tribe, whereas if they didn't dress like us or speak like us or act like us, then maybe they weren't part of our tribe, and so they were potential danger. But yeah, the idea when you're social engineering, when you're trying to trick people into believing you, into giving you information they definitely shouldn't, um, it is about building trust, and this trust has to be built rather quickly, right? But the thing that people don't realize is that social engineering is a construct we've been doing since we were literally infants. So the idea that I wish I had some cool pictures, like Dwight, he had some really nice pictures and stuff of graphics. That'd be kind of cool to illustrate his concepts. Maybe next time. Anyways, but so when we're children, even as infants, when you cry but you're not wet or you're not hungry and you just want attention from your parents, you just want them to show up and to pick you up and to hold you and and to do whatever, right? And so that's social engineering. The idea of like when a child gives their parents a puppy dog look because they want cookies or they want to buy some cereal at the grocery store or whatever, all of that is social engineering. I mean, going out on a date, job interviews are especially social engineering, right? I mean, you're trying to convince the person that you are the best candidate for this role, right? And they're trying to ascertain whether or not you are, right? And so there's a lot of social engineering that occurs there. The legal system, obviously, there are TV shows that illustrate this. There's a show called Bull. I believe it was on CBS. I don't know if it's on anymore, but he was a trial scientist, right? And so his whole thing was literally social engineering juries and even using biometric feedback and things of that nature to basically measure how successful they were at social engineering juries. And so the idea of it, and even there are people who are natural social engineers, and there's a lot of different theories as to why people are better at reading other people or even manipulating other people. Some of those theories, talk about like the upbringing and what type of environment that they were raised in, things of that nature. But the idea though is that the more that you realize, like I said, there are salespeople who are naturally good salespeople. They don't really understand maybe on a conscious level why they're good, or there's people that are naturally gregarious and popular that people just are sort of attracted to them easily, right? And those sort of things are all aspects of social engineering. And the idea that if we can consciously recognize what it is that we're doing and why we do it, right? And so one of the fascinating things that I love about social engineering is there's another TV show actually. It was called Lie to Me. I don't know. It was the last time I saw it. It was streaming on Hulu. I'm not sure if it's still streaming on Hulu. I don't even remember what the original network that was shown on. But it's based on a real guy, right? So the show, the main character's name is Dr. Lightman, and in reality, there's a man named Dr. Paul Ekman, and all of the things they attribute to Dr. Lightman, the idea that he was basically going out and trying to ascertain how much of human emotion, how much that we express is basically inherent to who we are and how much of it is culturally imbued into us, right, through cultural influences. And so he originally determined there were 5, and then he expanded it to 7 different emotions that we all universally as human beings all express the exact same way, right? That there's no real variance in them. Then he took the concept even further, and he said that when you're trying to conceal your emotions, so the concept of a poker face, right? So you're trying to hide the fact that you're expressing a particular emotion typically for purposes of deception, although not always, right? It just depends, but that is generally the accepted reason, and it's one of the reasons what Dr. Ekman initially isolated it as deception detection. And even though in the TV show Lie to Me, when Dr. Lightman takes us to the FBI, they love it right away, right? Because the FBI, they're such great early adopters of any new technologies or whatever. But no, actually, in Dr. Ekman's real life, they weren't early adopters. They actually didn't. They thought it was all just cold reading and smoke and mirrors, and that there was no real psychology behind it at all. And so basically, they didn't. They didn't think they didn't do any training in it whatsoever. Now, I think pretty much all FBI agents are trained in basically body language and micro expressions and those sort of things, as well as like some TSA agents. So when you see the guy that's standing in the back, who's not actually checking the IDs, but he's just kind of standing there looking at everybody, he's supposed to be reading body language and micro expressions and those sort of things in order to determine if someone might be suspicious, right? And, I don't know how well they're trained, but either way. But the point is that the concept of social engineering is pretty much ubiquitous. I mean, like I said, even if you're going to buy a car, the being able to read the tells, if you will, of the salesperson when they go, when you're actually asking them, like, is this the best price I can get on this car or whatever, right? And they always do that thing where they go to the sales manager and they come back and go, oh, sorry. If you understand how to determine that deception, then it's useful for you in every aspect of life, right? But yeah, so the idea of microexpressions goes a little bit further in the idea that you could actually influence how someone feels about you. And again, it's that idea of playing to their prejudice, right? So, and it's the idea that if you follow the microexpressions and you learn to mimic the microexpressions, and again, microexpression is only supposed to be exposed on the face for about a quarter of a second, right? So very quickly it pops up and goes away. So if somebody was to say that they didn't like, some particular politician, and you were to, and they were to flash, disgust, which by the way, disgust is the idea if you think of smelling dirty garbage, right? It's just, or like an animal that's like, roadkill that's been out there for a few days, or that just putrid smell. And it causes both sides of your lips to sort of sneer up towards your nose, right? And you have this instinctual kind of sneer, right? Sort of a double-sided Elvis sneer kind of thing, if you want to look at it that way. But the idea, though, is that it's interesting. A single-sided sneer, though, although more to the opposite side of the lips, is contempt, which is kind of interesting that both Elvis and like Billy Idol both actually had that like sneer thing when they sang, and you got to wonder how much of that was contempt. But anyway, but the point is that yeah, so when somebody flashes that, when they're talking about something that does disgust them, right, whether it's a particular topic or whether it's a particular, like I said, a particular person or act or whatever it is that they're thinking of, and when they flash that, like that quick, instinctual like disgust, as they said, again, if you learn to mimic it in a way that you do it very quickly, and you're not doing it where you're, because if you just go, oh yeah, me too, I hate that guy, right? Like they're going to think that you're making fun of them, right? Because now you're sort of pandering, and it's, it doesn't sell anything really well. And it doesn't even require that the person is consciously aware of these micro expressions. It's something that they'll pick up subconsciously, and that will be applied to their sort of the idea that they trust you. Because again, if you feel the same way as they do about particular subjects, then again, it engenders that concept of trust, that idea that you think like me, right? And so, maybe, and I'll give you an example, right? So I was doing a social engineering engagement for a large online stock trading company, and their data center was this building they called The Rock, right? And it was completely nondescript, and the reason they called it The Rock was after the movie with Sean Connery and all that, and where they're trying to break somebody out of the Alcatraz prison or whatever it was. But anyway, so they basically said no one has ever gotten into it before, and so I tried a few things as a way to get into it, but the way that I actually figured it out was, as I said, I walked up to the security guard, and first I had to badge me. I only have like a minute left, so I don't know how far I'm going to get down the story. But either way, it was the idea that as I was discussing with him and asking him questions about himself and his children and his job, he was showing micro expressions that I was then reflecting to him, and then that allowed him to at least trust me enough to leave me alone, which was the only objective that I needed to accomplish. And then I called my POC. I said I was left alone. He asked me what to describe the facility where I was. I described it for him, and he told me I could leave. So, but the exploitation of those micro expressions and the ability to reflect those is just as powerful as any SQL injection or buffer overflow that you might find in an application. Okay, so done.